right. Good morning, everybody. And thank you again for being here. We are so excited to have you here today. I know there will be other people who join us. There were about 12 people who registered just in the last 2 days. And so we're glad that those folks are here. We do know that there are a lot of things that come up this time of year. It's Friday morning, and I'm sure you've already dealt with things like, we didn't have enough subs for today, or something happened on the bus, but we're glad that you're going to try to take an hour out of your time to be here with us today. And so there are folks filtering in right now. Allison, if you, and I don't know if I made Stacy a co-host or not yet, but if you'll make sure that those folks get admitted.
I'm on it. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. We're pumped today to have my friend Bart Flener, who is the executive director at GREC, to speak to us today. And I even had my pastor saw my Facebook post and sent me a message like, what a timely and relevant topic for today's training. And man, isn't that true? The leader trust and credibility is so important for so many of the things that we are doing in education right now. And I can't wait to hear what Bart is going to share with us. But before we get started, I wanted to make sure that you knew what was going on with P3. Right now, this is the Principal Connections section of what we do. We just recorded a podcast with Rob Smith, who's the director of deeper learning for all of the co-ops across the state, specifically talking about the principal's role within United We Learn and with deeper learning. And so that should drop here in just a little bit. And I'm going to work on editing it today. We hope you take a listen to the Principal Podcast Party. Ed Camp is coming up January the 18th. I've gotten a bunch of great proposals for breakout sessions, and I'm so excited. We have Todd Whitaker, who is going to be our keynote speaker that day, and that's going to be an awesome day. John Akers has a bunch of his crew coming from the Center for School Safety. That was one of the areas that principals have said we need support with school safety, and so I've got a whole thread from John and from his partners there at the Center for School Safety. And so hope you'll join us for that January the 18th. You can find all of this information on our P3 website, which we'll pop into the chat so that you can be sure to see all of the fun things that are going on. Those are just a few examples of what we have going on with P3. And we hope you'll join us. We believe in being connected. That's why we put this on. The P3 Connections is a way for principals to come together, hear some great things that are going on throughout the state, like we're going to hear today from Bart. And then, if you want, we're here. You have a time to connect with one another and have discussions. Once Bart finishes up his presentation, we'll take the time to do that. So without further ado, Bart Flener, take it away, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Keith. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm going to try sharing my screen. So let's see how this works. All right. You guys able to see that okay? Excellent. Kim, I can't go without asking about the logo. I'm trying to figure it out. Is that a lion? Is that the Boyd County Lions? Is Randy Anderson around you anywhere right now?
Are you kidding me? He doesn't know what work means.
Well, tell him Coach Flener disappointed that he didn't come join the Leadership Credibility podcast this morning.
I will tell him, sir.
We're close friends. Tell him I said watch a recording, see if he can learn some things.
I will tell him. I'm sure he could school us a lot on basketball, though.
Absolutely.
He's a great guy.
Great man. Man, I look forward to talking a little bit this morning, really conversating with you all about a topic that I've been I don't know. We know that leadership, trust, and credibility is important. I really think in the last 2.5 years since COVID, and with a different Generation Z of folks being in our schools and working on our teams, if you read all the research, people are saying that if people don't trust their leader, and that's a big topic right now. There's been a lot of leadership failures in terms of trust and people misusing trust in the last few years, and people are just, I'm afraid, more cynical than we probably used to be. So you as a leader know that it's super important to establish trust, to maintain it, and when you need to go and repair it. which can be done. That sometimes people think when they lose trust, they can never get it back. I heard some at church the other day where the pastor basically said people can forgive immediately if they choose to. They can choose to forgive, but it takes it takes longer to reestablish trust with someone. So that's something just to consider, that once you've begun to establish this trust, it's not going to happen overnight if you're a new leader, but there are some things today I think that we can share that'll help you in those areas. So I'm going to jump in. I've got much more to cover probably than the time we have to cover, but look forward to this morning. It is interactive. So if you got questions, raise your hand, or you can put it in the chat. Keith, if you or Allison don't mind looking in the chat, if you find something we need to stop and talk about, let's just do it. So, all right, we're going to jump in. If you don't or haven't met me before, when you've been doing something 31 years like education, you've got a lot of stuff you've done. So I won't read this whole thing. It's what I use when introducing myself. But basically, I've been in lots of places around the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Middle school social studies teacher, high school social studies teacher, assistant principal, interim principal at West Jessamine High School for a year. The hardest, most difficult job I've had in my 31 years of education is being a principal. I will tell you that right now. I was a basketball coach forever, and my wife was used to me being consumed with my job from around October to March. But I remember that year as interim principal, it was around June, and she's like, I had started in July, and it was around May or June, and she's like, "Are you ever coming back home to our family again?" That was kind of a punch in the gut, but a realization that she's like, "I'm used to you being gone in the winter, but it feels like this year you've been coaching since July, and we'd like you to come back home." So at the end of that interim year, the SBDM council chose a different candidate to be the principal. And I was sad and hurt at the time, disappointed, but in reflection, it led to other things in Jessamine County Schools. And I think it's one of those times when sometimes you don't know when actually a no is not always a bad thing. Think about the Garth Brooks song, Unanswered Prayers, sometimes when I relate to that. So I know the job that you have. I know how challenging and difficult it is, but you are doing important work. Remember that. Lou Young tells me that a lot. So you're doing really important work. You need to remember that when it gets hard. So lots of different things. My wife Candy and I have been married for 31 years. All the time I've been an educator, and we have 3 adult children. We are trying out empty nest for the first time this fall. It's pretty fun so far. Avery, our 19-year-old, is coming home from college today. I think they don't have classes next week. So I'm excited to see him, but I'll be excited to send him back in 10 days as well, after Thanksgiving is over. Speaking of days, write these 2 numbers down. This is encouragement for you if you're in a school building or work in a school district. Write down the numbers 17 and 28, okay? Write those down. If you add those up, some of you are mathematicians, you've already done this, that's 45. In the next 45 days, starting tomorrow morning, in the next 45 days of your life, you will be in school with students and your adult team for 17 days, and you'll be out of school, getting to spend time with your family and having weekends and holidays and things like that for 28 days. So this is a good stretch of time in your calendar year, and I want you to appreciate it on the front end that you got 17 in and 28 out for the next 45 days starting tomorrow. So share that with folks if you want. I always did that around this time because you get weekends, you get holidays. We think that you'll probably going back to school. I don't know that you're going back on Tuesday the 2nd. I'm sorry, Monday the 2nd. Most of you are probably going back Tuesday the 3rd. So when I did my calendar math, that's what I came up with. All right. I'm using 2 references today. Again, you'll have access to this presentation, but I'm using the SMR Covey book, Speed of Trust, and I'm using Douglas Fisher's work, which is a new book called Leader Credibility, and it's an offshoot of the book Teacher Credibility that they came out with in 2020. We're going to actually start on the teacher side. There are 4 areas in the teacher credibility construct that Fisher and his friends decided in 2020 really matter to make them effective teachers. So we're going to start on the teacher side, but then on the next slide, you're going to be in the place of the teacher, and your students are going to be your adult team members at your school. So we're going to use a parallel. 4 areas for teachers: trust. And we'll talk about breaking down the word trust in a minute, because a lot of people just think, well, I would trust Kimberly to, take care of my kids if I had something going on and I had to go somewhere with my spouse. I would trust her to take care of my kids. We think of trust in that way, but trust has another piece, which is really the second bullet here, and that's competence. Knowing teachers care is important, but you have educators in your building right now who everybody considers a caring educator who may not be able to teach very well. And I don't mean that harshly, but it's true. And so the competent educators have great clarity with their students of those 3 important questions. If I'm a student in your classroom and you are competent, I can answer the 3 questions. What am I learning? Why am I learning it? And how will I know when I've learned it? Something that you go around and ask all the time, I'm sure. The third area is dynamism. I like to think of these folks as dynamic educators. You could walk through your building right now and you know that you're going to go in certain classrooms and there's going to be a vibe or some juice in that classroom. And when I was an administrator and even as a superintendent, I know you're not supposed to do this, but it's kind of like when you're a coach. I say I love all my players equally, but I'd rather hang out with some of them than some of the others. And I feel that way in my principalship and superintendentship as well. Was I would find myself gravitating to certain classrooms, to those dynamic teachers that have active, fast-paced environments in which students are both challenged and supported. And students know that too, whether the teacher's bringing the juice or not. And last but not least is immediacy. And I didn't really understand this word when I first read it. I thought in essence it had like physically, hey, we're going to do this thing and we're going to do it right now. I thought it was like immediate, but the word is more about relatedness. If you've got, simply put, you got some teachers who are more approachable than others to students. The opposite of this is a chilly classroom. You could walk around in your building and you can find some chilly classrooms where the students don't feel completely valued, and they're never going to learn at their best when they don't feel completely valued, or if they don't completely trust the teacher to be able to take those risks and make those mistakes that come with learning. So if you're writing down the 4 words, they are trust, competence, dynamism, and immediacy. Now we're going to parallel them, and you're going to put yourself in the teacher spot and your teachers in the student spot. Are you followable? I don't know if followable is a word, but just work with me. So are you followable as a leader? I'm using whenever you do virtual screens, you lose things in the mist, but this is leader credibility. This is the book I was referencing earlier. They've taken teacher credibility and they've moved it to leader credibility. So remember, the first indicator was trust. If people choose not to follow you, are you actually a leader? How many of you can identify with the cartoon on the right? Have you ever been there? I have, as a leader. I'm like, man, we got this. I'm so fired up about this initiative. Let's do it. And I take off and I go down the road a bit and I look back and I'm like, where's everybody at? And they look at it like there's a chasm between where I'm at and where they are. So people choose not to follow when they, number one, if they don't trust a leader, they're not going to follow you. So trust clearly goes back to the first indicator, which we said. Number 2, if they question the competence of the leader. Again, I like so-and-so as my principal. I'm a teacher. I'm in the teacher workroom, the lounge, the place where it all happens. And I say, I like so-and-so as a principal, but I'm not sure they actually know exactly what they're doing. If people question your competence, they're going to have a hard time following you. Number 3, if they ever sense a lack of passion and confidence from you, why would they follow you? If you don't care, why should they care? Going back to the teacher credibility, that was dynamism. Remember that one? And the 4th one, immediacy. If they do not feel close to the leader, doesn't mean you have to be best friends with everybody on your team. But I watched Tubby Smith, the UK basketball coach, one night when he was recruiting Brandon Stockton, one of my players. This was 20 years ago, and it still sticks with me. We were up there in Memorial Coliseum, and we were walking along this walkway above the court, and Tubby saw a custodian there, and I don't remember the guy's name, but we'll just say John. And Tubby stops and says, "Hey, John, how's your mom doing? I know you said she had that surgery last week." And I was like, you can't make this stuff up. There's no way Tubby is, he's not planning this for me. He literally cares about John enough to know that his mom had surgery, and Tubby's got a lot of other things to worry about. He's an awesome man, but what I saw that night was immediacy from him. And John felt close to him as a leader. And then the fifth one, which is a one that's been added by them, which is not part of teacher credibility, although it is in some ways, but the leaders have this is a separator for leaders. The fifth one is people will not choose to follow you if they are not sure where your organization, your team, your school is going and how they fit into that future. And that's called forward thinking. So in the leader credibility book that Fisher and them are just releasing, they've got a fifth element or indicator called forward thinking. So that's one for you as a leader. All right. I want to do this now because I don't know if I'll get to it at the end, but I'm not going to spend much time on it. But we have a chance. This presentation today for me is a trial run for December 13th. I'm going to talk about the speed of trust and leader credibility. I've been using these cards. I love a good deck of playing cards, but these are separate cards, and we've got copies of them to give out. We're going to go over the 13 behaviors of high trust leaders today, but we're going to use these. I'm going to speak first, and then we got a special guest, Brendan Wojtko, coming from Entree Leadership. He came and spoke to our superintendents at our retreat, and everybody spoke in glowing terms about him and said, we got to get him back in front of our leaders in our buildings. His topic is overcoming uncomfortable conversations. He will script how you can better have these conversations that you have to have as a leader, that we sometimes subconsciously avoid, or we don't do them well. And the person leaves our office and they don't even know they had an uncomfortable conversation, right? And you're like, daggone, I got to go back and do that again now, because clearly they didn't get what I was trying to say. So he'll give you a script. He'll tell you what happens in the first 90 seconds. He'll tell you how to circle back around, and it's awesome. So that's 8:30 to 12:30, December 13th. There's a registration form. Anyway, we'll get you that when it's over. All right. How many of you have used a Freyer model before in literacy? All right, Kim and some others. It's one of the ones I remember as a social studies teacher. I don't know why, but I like the Freyer model. Normally, you would put the definition in the top left-hand corner, the characteristics in the top right-hand corner, behaviors or something, examples in the bottom left, and the opposite in the bottom right. We're going to give it equal value today. We're going to do what demonstrates this. We're going to give you the definition top left. We're going to give you what you would say if you're actually engaging in this behavior in the top right. We're going to give you the opposite in the bottom left. We're going to give you counterfeit examples in the bottom right. So anything below in the bottom half of the screen is not where you want to reside regarding this behavior. Okay. So we got 13 of these. So I'm going to go fast. Okay. 13 behaviors of a high trust leader. Number one is talk straight. It's be honest. Use simple language. Call things what they are. I'm not going to read every one of these to you. Things you might say if you are a high trust leader in the area of talking straight. You could start a sentence with someone and say, my intent is to be candid with you. You could say, let me tell you what I've observed. Now, people can disagree with your interpretations, but they can't necessarily disagree with your observations. The difference between an observation and an interpretation, right? When I came in your room the other day, what I observed is 7 students with their head down on their desk. Now, my interpretation would be that they weren't super engaged and that you weren't very dynamic. Now, the teacher can disagree with your interpretation, but again, Hard to disagree with observations and data. All right, what's the opposite of talking straight? It's distorting the facts. It's spinning the truth. It's actually saying something truthful, but leaving a false impression as to what you actually meant, right? Yeah, Keith did take that. I mean, he took the lead on it last time. He did take the lead on it last time, but and just not saying anything else. So now you've given some truth. Keith did take the lead on that last meeting, but you kind of leave in the air like, you know, it wasn't very good, you know, or something without saying something, right? You would never do that, Keith. Okay, I'm just using you as a non-example here. And last but not least, the counterfeit, again, double talking, manipulating, positioning yourself and how you want to, you know, you say something to make yourself seem better or feel better. Again, you'll get them all, but that's behavior number one, talk straight. Number two, demonstrate respect. I'm going to pick my favorite of these sentences. It's the one in the middle that starts with the word treat. Treat everyone with respect, especially those who can't do anything for you. We all know people who will demonstrate respect to certain people because they think it might get them a leg up. That's not what this behavior is talking about. I love number 3 and 4 and 5. I've just got done with a 2-day adaptive leadership training where I was a trainer on a team of trainers. And we really encourage you to engage unusual voices. That's sometimes the voices that you know are going to disagree with you on a topic. Sometimes it's easier not to hear from those people. But if you go on the front end and say something like, Byron, I know you see things differently than I do on this initiative we're about to undertake. I really need to listen to you and hear why you think the way you do. Just that's respect. Byron knows that you may not end it. You may still do the initiative, but at least that he's been listened to and feels like he's been heard. Opposite of this demonstration of respect, fake caring.
Can I break in there for just a second, Bart? Because I'm thinking about being a principal this time of year and having to push back on people is I think sometimes as leaders, when people stop agreeing with us or we know they're on the opposite side, then we just stop talking to them or bringing them to the table. And I think that's what starts cancers in our schools. And so as hard as that is, I think that those people have to continue to have seats at the table, but not necessarily in decision making, but they need to feel heard. And so that's that delicate balance, in my opinion, of being heard and still being able to, as a leader, have enough trust and credibility that they understand if you don't go their way. Just thinking about that as you were talking.
Great point. I learned that the majority of the time, parents, when they come to talk to you, want to be heard. They want to be heard. And I learned to start saying with parents as a coach. I continued it as an administrator. I really want to hear what you've got to say today. I can't promise that the outcome is going to be when we make a decision on this, I can't promise you the outcome is going to be exactly what you want, but I am very eager to hear. And sometimes I just learned to start saying, if this situation were resolved in just the way you want it to be resolved, what would the outcome be? So that you're clear on what it is they're seeking or what they want. I spent a long time one day as an assistant principal thinking I'd spent 2 hours working with this student. And I called the parent that afternoon and said, all right, here's how we resolve this. I've done all of it. And I was so happy. And she said, that's not what I wanted at all. I was like, oh my gosh. And so I learned after that to start asking before I started, what is it you would like if the situation were resolved in a way that was pleasing to you? Counterfeit examples of respect demonstration, again, showing respect for only those who can do something for you and not for people who are beneath you in some way. And that's a strong term, but people that can't necessarily do something for you in job-related fashion. All right. Number 3, create transparency. Definition: declare your intent. My goal in this is for us to accomplish this strategic measure by March the 1st. Be open and authentic, but it's also okay to be able to be transparent about what you can't be transparent about. And that's not excuse making, but you can literally say, that's all I can say about this subject because of laws or regulations or potential litigation that might be coming our way. Some things you might say. Anybody ever use that? Disagree with me on this, but here's my, here's my plan or thought or initiative here. What does that do for people? I can see Kimberly's face. I can't see I can see Kimberly and Thomas.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it just gives them permission to disagree with the leader, and kind of allows them to open up to their ideas, maybe have a conversation about it.
And
Love it.
sometimes they're scared when you say disagree. Your teachers are, because they're like, you don't really mean I can disagree with you. So we started using the language of push back. Who'd like to push back on this? So
Yes.
it's not as much as I might not totally disagree, but I want to push back and challenge something.
I like that language. I'm probably going to change that, Allison, if I remember before. I'm going to push back with me, push back on me regarding this. If you like, here's what I'm thinking. Opposite of transparency, creation is to hide, to cover up, or to obscure. Counterfeit examples, any hidden agendas, meanings, or objectives. Pretending. Fourth behavior of a high trust leader. You are going to mess up. You've probably done so this week, or maybe even this morning. You got to be able to right wrongs. Make things right when you're wrong. Apologize quickly. Making an actual apology, not a, I was probably in the wrong, but here's what happened. And then you justify all the things you just did. So you really didn't apologize at all. My wife has accused me of that at times, probably accurately. All right. Are you apologizing or not? I'm really not sure here. What you say. And I love this, the 5th bullet. What can I do to make this right? I'm aware that I've messed up in this situation. Is there something I can do to make this right? And if so, tell me what it is. There's the opposites, what I was talking about. To rationalize wrongful behavior, I'd as soon you not apologize if you start one, and then about halfway through it, you say, but, blah, 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 blah. Just don't even do it. Counterfeit. Trying to hide mistakes. Failing to admit a mistake until you are forced to do so. That is not a good position to be in.
No, I had that breakfast. Oh, okay, I am.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm good.
Share whatever your breakfast is, you have to share it. We're a close group here.
I am really sorry.
Oh, you're good, Tiffany. I thought just tell us what you're having at least. Was it like, was there gravy involved? That's what I want to know. We're in Kentucky, So no, I think if you ever been, I don't want this, I don't know how vulnerable our group is, willing to be completely transparent here. We just talked about it, but it doesn't have to be you. But if you've been in a situation where you've had to do this, or you've seen someone admit a mistake only when they're forced to admit it. Like they had a chance to make it right the wrong earlier and they didn't, and then they had to go back and admit that there was a mistake later. You don't have to name actual people, but what's the difference in the righting the wrong before you have to and failing to admit it until you're forced to do so?
Bart, is this where we talk about Calipari's offense?
It'd be a great spot. Yeah, be a great spot. I do think about coaches sometime, or somebody that's committed a violation of some kind or whatever, rationalizing, doing everything wrong until you know there's nothing else they can do. And then they have to come out and make this apology. And you're really like, yeah,
Well, yeah, they don't feel like it's genuine. And many times teachers feel like somebody higher than you made you do it,
exactly.
you know, and so it's not genuine and it's not building any type of rapport for sure.
Absolutely. You know this as a principal. One of your most difficult challenges is being in between the central office and your faculty, right? I mean, I know you know this. But yeah, exactly, Allison. If teachers feel like something happened and you're not going to admit it, and then they know you got called to a meeting and now you come back in a faculty meeting and admit it later, yeah, it's not a good look. It's going to take a while to repair that trust. Number 5, show loyalty. I don't want you to get confused about this one, because when I first looked at the card, I was confused. Sometimes people think loyalty means, you know, I'm going to ride and die. Whatever you do, I'm just going to defend you no matter what. And that's not exactly what this means, okay? The last 3 sentences are what loyalty in this case means to me. I've got to respell behavior, but I'll work on that one. The last 3 sentences say, speak about people as if they were present. Represent others who aren't there to speak for themselves, and do not badmouth others behind their back, and don't let other people do it. Now, it seems like we're veering into talking about, you know, an example would be, now you came in here to talk about a difficulty you're having with your class, but it seems like we veered into a different topic about difficulties we're having with your neighbor teacher across the hall. I think we need to stop this discussion at this point, because that person is not here to represent themselves. Have you had a chance to talk to that person yourself already? If not, you need to go do that first. People love the second one. It sounds like you might be gaining something on your part, but it's okay. You did a great job. And you know what? I'm going to make sure so-and-so hears about this. I heard from a superintendent on a visit yesterday about a great decision their principal had made in dealing with a difficult issue. And I, in my mind, thought, man, you know what? I know the principal. I'm going to make sure this person hears about it. I'm going to reach out to them and say, I just got to tell you, man, so-and-so was really saying some awesome things regarding, you know, about you, and they really think you're doing a great job. Isn't that a great thing to hear, right? When we hear that, man, I love, because, you know, we hear the other side for sure. The opposite of showing loyalty is to take credit yourself for something or to betray others in some way. And a counterfeit example of showing loyalty, which we all have seen, giving credit to the people when they're there and then downplaying their contribution and taking the credit yourself when they're not there. That's a behavior that really costs you as a leader. It might feel good in the short term, but I promise it's not going to help you in the long term. All right, we're going to number 6.
Hey,
Now,
Bart.
yes, please go ahead, Bob.
I don't know if you're familiar with Pat Tillman.
Yes, number 42 from Arizona State.
Yeah, absolutely. It was on Veterans Day, and they were showing just you know, kind of a recap of his story, which if you're not familiar, it really is an incredible story to look up. But one thing that was really specific about his behavior, of course, he was on the football field primarily in the beginning. Every time they asked him about winning the game, of course, he was a star. I mean, he was out there making it happen, but every time he just would say, the team played great tonight. You know, I mean, and they would keep pushing him, and he just was very, very short. The team played great tonight, you know, and while we don't see a lot of that in sort of our modern context, we see a lot of me. You know, while it's not that we don't want to get that credit, but it's always about sharing that success. you know.
Absolutely.
and building that loyalty by saying, look, it is not me, it's we. There are a whole lot of people that are making this happen. And you know, and that's such a big, I think, just being loyal to your people and the fact that, you know, it's a communal effort.
It's a great point, Byron. I think it's said of the stars on teams, it's said of leaders and organizations, it's said of you as the head coach of your adult team. Oftentimes we get more credit than we deserve, and we get more blame than we deserve. But what you can do with these two things is you can take when you get more credit than you deserve, you can just share the credit. And when you get more blame than you deserve, most of the time, just go ahead and take it. Now, there's times when you got to defend yourself if someone's making an unfair allegation against you that would affect your credibility. You gotta come back against that. But a lot of times with blame, you know, it's easy as a head coach. You know, Mark Stoops after the game when we helped break Vanderbilt's 26-game losing streak on Saturday in the SEC. He just said, it's on me. I haven't been able to get through to this team this year like I've been able to get through to past teams. He could have thrown a lot of people under the bus, and he didn't. And another good example. All right, if you're paying any attention to colors, if you're a colors person, when we go to number 6, you'll notice a different background. So far, our backgrounds have been blue. For the next few slides, they're going to be red or pink or whatever that color you want to call it. So just note that later. We'll come back to it in a few minutes. All right, number 6 is deliver results. Now we're moving into some areas as a leader. We've been talking a lot about the person. Now we're going to, you know, you can kind of see a shift in these next few phrases. You as a leader, for people to follow you, have to deliver results at some time. I could be a great coach, but if we never, ever, you know, win very many games, eventually people are going to stop listening to me and believe that I'm a great coach who cares about kids, and they're going to ask somebody else to come in and do that job. Please don't relate this all directly to test scores either when I say deliver results, okay? Please don't do that. Get the right things done. Make things happen. Be on time. Be within the budget. What you say, somebody who's delivering results. How are we going to measure our results? How are we going to measure success? By this deadline, I commit to deliver these measures. These deliverables will be done by this deadline. Opposite of delivering results is simply to perform poorly or fail to deliver. And the counterfeit is, I've seen a lot of people who are great at activities that don't produce results. I've been in teachers' rooms where there's all kinds of stuff happening, like a lot of activity, like a lot of busyness. And you probably feel that way. And I've, as a superintendent, you know, sometimes you go into school and like, man, they're doing a lot of stuff, but I'm not sure it's actually turning into the results. I watch practices of other coaches in athletics sometime, and I'm like, man, they're doing a lot of stuff at practice, but I'm not sure it relates to actual results on the court. Over-promising and under-delivering. It's a bad step for you as a leader in terms of delivering results. Always try to under-promise and over-deliver. Number 7, get better. Are you improving as a leader? Are you getting better? Be a constant learner. Doing things like this help you be a better leader. I'm going to keep learning. I'm going to keep listening to podcasts. I'm going to keep reading books. I'm going to keep, Allison, you're dying to say something.
I mean, yes, because this is probably one of the biggest passion areas I have for school leaders, because I see so many just go through the motions and they want to send teachers to the PDs, but they don't want to go and understand what their teachers are being asked to do and implement. So I say, to me, my opinion is that that's the number one way to build credibility, is to walk the walk with your teacher. So I'm not saying that you go, well, I did go to most of the PDs my teachers are a part of, but beyond that, I need to be learning too. Like I need to know what's coming, like the whole deeper learning initiative, the 3 ideas with United We Learn. Like we can't be blind about that and not know what's going on in the state. And we also, principals, can't be saying, well, you know, my super didn't tell me, or I didn't get it. Like we have to be in the know, and it takes time and it takes effort. But to me, like the school is only going to be as good as its leader is. Sorry. Okay. I digress. But
No, it's not a digression at all.
the connecting piece is so key, even outside your district, to see what other schools are doing. So just like this letters cohort that we've created with the principals who are implementing letters, it's got so much potential if the leaders will lean in.
Mhm.
Okay, sorry.
No, I want to go to the counterfeit examples here, because these are important. I have all 3 of these I can speak to. Number 1, you've all got people who are like leaders, be like, hey, this month we're going to do this, we're going to get better, and the next month they're doing something else. And then the 3rd month, hey, we got another thing. And I was known as superintendent, like I had a lot of initiatives and things I wanted to accomplish. So I had to be careful of this too, because what people will say when they see these things is they'll say, this too shall pass. If you just wait out Rachel, she'll stop talking about learning targets eventually, right? I just saw your face, Rachel, so I hope that okay if I use your example. She doesn't actually, she may talk about learning targets till she's blue in the face, and I hope she does. But the second one, you got people like Allison was saying, they're always going to PDs, they're always getting new learning, but they don't actually doing anything with it. Like you do have to do something with it, right? I've learned that when I listen to podcasts or see things like this, I've got to go talk about it in order for the learning to stick with me. That's why this morning's really important for me. And then the last one, Keith, you were joking, not joking about Cal's offense, but I think people talk about improving, but don't actually do it. Like if you go to the opposite on the left-hand side, the 3rd bullet says to become irrelevant. I have seen athletic coaches through the years, and you've seen teachers through the years that are literally doing in the classrooms what was done to them in the 20th century, y'all. And we are 22 years into the 21st century. And I'm thinking like, you're irrelevant. And then speaking basketball lingo, Cal has not embraced some of the new strategies as far as spreading the court and shooting threes, and even talks about it some, but in the big games like the other night, it doesn't seem like it's actually happening. And it's frustrating to watch. And if you're not careful and you don't keep learning, you can become irrelevant, and the coach would be like, man, he's still doing that stuff he did back in 20 years ago. So I'd be cautious. Get better is important, and then actually produce from getting better. Use the stuff you're learning. Confront reality. A little bit like creating transparency. I think there's some synonyms there. This is when you're willing to take on the tough stuff. And if you, like I was talking earlier about uncomfortable conversations, you're willing to have them, because if you don't, small issues become big ones. You can't die on every hill, but you got to, you can't go to the mat on everything, but you got to go to the mat on some things. And you can't, you must, principalship takes a lot of courage. And read a quote the other day that the tallest trees get the most wind. Like they get a lot of people coming at them, but you still got to stand tall. What you say when you're willing to confront reality. I love bullet 3. Hey, we're talking a lot about this, but I don't think we're talking about what actually needs to be talking about. We're talking around the subject, but the real subject is that we have some of our teachers on our social studies team that aren't that concerned about our common assessments at the end of the 9 weeks. They discount them. They say things to the kids like these really don't matter. I just got to give them because my principal said so. Opposite is to ignore reality, or what we do oftentimes is we just act like it doesn't exist. And the counterfeit is, you have some people that say, hey, really gotta get better at this. We're gonna really work on this, but then there's no follow-up to actually working on the tough stuff. They just bring attention to it, but then they evade the actual work. Or they pick some smaller side issues, which are easier than dealing with the real ones. And they get busy dealing with these things. Clarifying expectations. People need this. Your students, if teachers, okay, if we believe that students need this from teachers, then shouldn't we also believe that teachers need this from their principals? Is that fair to say? Validate them, renegotiate them if needed. Don't assume that expectations are clear or shared. Please don't do that. What exactly do you want me to deliver, and by when do I need to deliver it? And if you're talking to a teacher, you can tell them that sometimes. Here's what I need, and we're going to need it by this Friday. I'll need you to email it, whatever. Leave expectations undefined or unclear. Hey man, we gotta get after it more in the class, y'all. I'm walking around and I think we got to get after it more in some of our classrooms. We say stuff like some of our classrooms. And then the people out there be like, he's not talking about me. I know he's not talking about me. And so we do that some even when we think we're going to clarify expectations, we guess, we fail to pin down specifics. We use generalities. Number 10, practicing accountability. High trust leaders practice accountability. You hold yourself accountable first, others second. You're clear on how you'll communicate how you're doing and how they're doing. You say things like, here's what I've done so far, or I'm responsible for this. I need you to be responsible for this. Please return and report your progress by this date, by this time. Not owning up is the opposite of that. And counterfeit examples, which happens when people haven't had their expectations clarified. You've been in a situation where you say, well, oh, I thought you wanted me to do that? I didn't know that. I thought when you talked about it, you were going to do it. And then your best teachers can't stand it when you do this last sentence in counterfeit over here. When you fail to enforce consequences when expectations are not met, you run the risk of losing your best teachers. The Robin Jackson continuum where you got will and skill, and up in the upper right quadrant, I love continuums or quadrants, you got teachers with high will and high skill, your high flyers, letting them run with stuff, backing them up, getting them the resources they want. Those teachers are super frustrated when you fail to enforce consequences when expectations aren't met. It's like the best players on your team, and they're like about to check out on you because clearly you're not really holding people to expectations. All right. Take a look at this slide and let's see what we can do with it. 1 through 5 is on the left, 6 through 10 is on the right. The speed of trust talks a lot about trust. And most of the time, if I came to you this morning and said, what does it take for you to trust someone? What are some things you would say? Let's just get some shout outs. If I said, you got a new leader on your team, what does it take for you to trust them? What are some things you'd say about it that you'd like to hear?
They're credible.
All right, credible. So I'm going to put that on the right side. Is that okay? All right. They show competence or credibility. What else?
For me, it takes time. They have to prove
All right, good.
themselves.
Good. What about respecting folks? All right. Do you see any difference in these two columns of words? Because they both relate to trust according to Covey's speed of trust, but he will say that trust is not about whether you whether the person has integrity, okay? Although they have to have integrity, but if they only have integrity, but not what Rachel's saying, which is competence on the right, you're still not going to trust them. What's the difference in these two columns? What do you see? Can somebody make an analysis?
I think the red column is what you're going to see long term. I think the blue column you can see fairly quickly, but the red column, you need more time to see that those things actually play out.
Great. It's great. That's a great answer. There's more answers to be had here. Tell me what else is the difference between the red words and the blue words.
This may be totally off topic, but I see the red words more as concerned with the ability to build relationships,
Okay.
more of a personal attribute of the person, whereas the right side is more skill based, the skills that person brings to the table.
Yes. Now you said red words, but I think what you meant was the blue words are more about interpersonal
relations. Yeah.
And the red words are more about what that person's able to accomplish and do as a leader.
Yes.
I think that's great. And I hope that we've gone over 10 this morning, and I hope that you go away with, if you go away with nothing else today, you go away with the idea that a great leader must be these things on the left, which are interpersonal, but also these things on the right, which lead to competence and accomplishment and getting stuff done. It's what we said at the very beginning. I've got people who I would trust to hang out with my children. Even if I had young children, I'd say, hey, I need you to come over and stay with my kids. We've got to go do this. And it's an emergency. I could call them, but I don't want those people doing my taxes. Right? I could have somebody on the right that I know would help me with results, expectations, accountability, but I might not necessarily want that person taking care of my kids because they might not know how to do it very well. Got to have both. It goes back to those, if you remember the 4 things we talked about early this morning about credibility, it goes to trust and competence. And so now, I remember how many behaviors. Anybody remember how many behaviors there were? And I've got 8 minutes left, so we're gonna do these fast. Anybody remember how many there were this morning? 1. I'm refereeing now, so I'll try this. That says 31. Let's see, 13. Okay, 13 high trust behaviors. So there's 3 left. They're going to be. Don't let that Dan Costello guy in. He's a principal too, but now he's at Greg, so I guess we'll let him in for a minute. Dan, any things you can add to the subject, please do, but we got 7 minutes, so here goes. The last 3 are separators, y'all. Not that these 10 aren't important, they are, but there's 13 behaviors. These first 5 deal with the trust and integrity side. These next 5 deal with the results and competence side. These last 3, they call them combined behaviors. Character and competence is what Covey calls them. I've been saying integrity. Character on the left, competence on the right. Rachel, you hit it well there. Those 2 together equal trust. Now let's talk about some separating behaviors. 11 through 13. Bullet 1 is 11. Bullet 2 is 12, and bullet 3 is 13. Somebody want to do the Vanna White? I'm like Vanna at this point. Now, I don't have this design where I can flash the letters. So you can't guess a letter. You actually have to guess the whole word. Anyone? Ferris Bueller. We've only got 6 minutes. Listen first. Thank you. Good job, Byron Darnell. Keep your, now that some of you are trying to make promises fit in there, but that's too many letters, you know it is. If I tell someone I'm going to do something, it's really important that I do what I say I'm going to do. That's called a what?
Keep your word.
All right. Word is, there's a lot of letters there, Allison, but that, well, I could put word with a lot of O's in it.
Oh. I thought it was your word. I said Y-O-U-R.
Okay,
It's
okay,
still too
yeah,
many
keep your word,
letters.
like double, yes. This is keep your commitments. Commit.
Oh, okay.
I won't try to sing the song. Sing it. And the last one is extend trust. listen first, keep commitments, and extend trust to others if you want them to trust you. Now, don't extend it blindly. I would not advise that, letting someone go to the board and just present some that you haven't checked on first as their principal, but these are important. I've got to skip at this point, so what I'm going to do is just run through these, and then you'll be able to read them later. I struggle with this one on the counterfeit side of trying to be vulnerable and create transparency. I struggle sometimes listening only to formulate my reply. Like, man, when she gets done with this sentence, I'm going to say this. It's going to be great.
That's where cognitive coaching does help, or it helps me,
Absolutely.
because I was always that person. But that format really helped me change the way I talk to teachers.
You're in a hurry as principals, y'all. You go by someone's room to check on, do some and see some, and then all of a sudden it's 2 minutes later and they're still talking to you, and you're like, woof. And you start turning your body towards the door. That's body language thing, you know. Like, I'm not really listening to you anymore. I'm looking at you, but I'm really facing this way. But listening first and not listening just to, so we call that LTU versus LTR. LTU is listening to understand. LTR is listening to reply. I'm only listening to get enough information from you so I know what I'm going to say next in this debate argument that wasn't really supposed to be a debate argument competition to start with anyway. Keep your commitments. What's the second bullet say on what you say? Somebody read that one out loud. Second bullet, top right. Right here.
Is this a commitment I really want to make?
Better decide. And it's okay to say, let me think about that, check my calendar and get back with you. Because the top left says, say what you're going to do, then do what you say you're going to do. You can get seriously overcommitted as a principal really fast, especially as a new one or a young one or a less experienced one, because you want to say yes to everybody because you're trying to build relationships. Hey, will you come see my class 5th period today? And kids are going to be doing this little thing. And I really, from 1:45 to 2 o'clock, it's going to be awesome. You're like, yeah, I got you. And then 1:45, something happens and you're not there. And they're like, I guess they really didn't got me after all. Okay. They really didn't have me. And 13 is extend trust. A lot of things to say here. Something that our staff mentioned when we did this in staff meeting is right here. The second sentence under the definition. Extend trust abundantly to those who have earned your trust. Dan Costello and I have been working on the team together 3 years. He came on October 26th, 2020, I believe. And it's been 3 years and a couple of weeks now. And there's things, once I give it to him, hey, I really need you to take this one on, that I never have to think about again. And I hope he would say, I extend trust abundantly to those people who have earned your trust. Again, I wouldn't extend it blindly. He'd figure out that he's got it when I give him something, and he's got it in the way that, you know, I want it to be for our organization. Don't do the counterfeit where you give false trust to people or fake trust. Act like you trust them, but then you go micromanage and go behind them and check on them 8 times a day. And like, you got that? Hey, and you said, yeah, I had till Friday, right? It's only Wednesday. Yeah, but I just want to make sure you're, you know, are you doing okay with it stuff? That's not truly extending trust. I asked Christina Jackson. She basically built this presentation for me. All credit goes to her. Christina, come up with some icons for these 3 words around trust. Are you establishing trust? Are you building it like a house? Takes a while, somebody said. Are you maintaining it? Are you properly taking your car in to actually get oil changes and do the things you need to do to maintain trust with your team? And when you mess it up, are you going about the right way in terms of repairing it? Those are questions to ask. We don't have time for this video, but I hope you got 2 minutes to finish with Noah. If you don't, it's 9:59. This is Simon Sinek talking about Noah the barista. If you've seen this video, then feel free to watch it again. Hopefully it might be new for most of you. It's about customer service. We showed it at our retreat in August, but it's about a guy who works as a barista at 2 different casinos and how his employers make him feel. So you as an employer, you as a principal, how are you making your adult team members, and that's the phrase we use in Russellville when I was superintendent. We had student team members and we had adult team members because I love the concept of team. And so, I worry equally about both, but I would call them all team members, and also kept us from using classified and certified phrases in our school system. We just said, you're an adult team member for the Russellville Panthers. Then everybody knows whether they're driving a bus or teaching a 2nd grade class, they're an adult team member for the Panthers. So how are you making your adult team members feel as a part of your team? Your teachers in your school are either flying under the radar, hoping that they can just avoid you and getting caught doing something wrong, or they feel like valued in such a way that they're going to perform at their best level and their highest level and continue to get better because they know that you have their back. It's like coaching them up so you can take people who aren't quite where you want them to be just yet and know that you're going to help get them there. And in this age of teacher shortage, it's easy to say they're not cutting it, man. We just got to move them on. But who's coming in behind them? Now, I'm not saying there's not times when you have to non-renew a teacher, but I think that's an interesting perspective. Last slide is trust taxes and trust dividends. Have you ever been on a team where everything takes longer than it should take to get things accomplished? I have. That's called a trust tax. People go into discussions and meetings and situations wondering what the real agenda is. We're supposed to be talking about this, but do you really think, what do you think's really going on? Why do you think he or she's calling this meeting? You could even get an inheritance tax. If you're a principal who's followed a principal where there was a trust tax, it's going to take a little while longer for you to start to build up trust dividends. But when you're rolling with a team and you have trust dividends, and I feel like Dan and I have talked about this, we have some trust dividends right now at Greg that we built up, and then we're really have some momentum. It's like leaven in the bread. Everything gets lifted around it. Communication, collaboration increase because people aren't having to filter everything that's said. Keith, I've had coaching colleagues, and when I talked to them, I had to watch every word I said because I know I could end up on their bulletin board if I said anything that they could take in the wrong way and go make it against me. And I didn't mean anything by it. So I just hardly say anything to them after a while. Or I have to watch, okay, I'm about to say this. And you know how much filtering is going on in my brain there? Be careful what you say around so-and-so. Trust dividends improves excitement, energy, and passion. We have a lot of that on our team right now, I feel like. And it's greater enjoyment and quality of life, which daggone, don't we all need that? Dan Costello, anything? I know I'm past time.
No, Bart, good points there. The one point I thought of just a minute ago when you're talking about, just trusting your people and leaving things with them. I learned as a principal, the more I just kind of let go and let them have things and give them some trust, they usually, they don't take advantage of it. They thrive on that trust. They thrive on an opportunity to prove themselves and show themselves. And I don't have to worry. I learned you give people tasks and explain clearly what you need them to do. They'll in most cases will pull through for you.
Allison, Stacy, Keith, thanks so much. It's been fun discussion.
Hey, thank you, Bart. We appreciate it. We appreciate the overtime. That's free basketball that we got there at the end. This is a great presentation. Our team is texting in the background, man, he's a good presenter and this is great content. So we really appreciate you taking your time out of your day. And to everybody who attended, thank you for being here. We did record it, and so I'm going to stop the recording.